Let's talk about protein intake. My goal, and it has been my goal for the last 4 months, eating 200 grams of protein per day. Number one, the reason why I do it. In training wise, there is a rule of thumb, and it's 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. And I'm 88 kg, so that is roughly 176 grams of protein. But 200 grams, the reason I have that is I rather want to have a bit too much than too little. And the truth is that my target is 200 grams. Then every day, of course, it's not going to be 200 grams. But since I have this margin, if I eat a little bit less than 200 grams, I'm still going to have more than I need. And that's really the reason why it's 200 grams, and that's pretty high. And now onto how I eat 200 grams per day, because that is, trust me, harder than I thought it would be. But I do it with routine-based lifestyle. Breakfast, I make sure I get enough protein there. I eat 3 eggs each morning on a sandwich usually. Can switch it up a little, but always almost 3 eggs and a protein shake. The eggs are roughly 21 grams of protein if I have 3 of them. The protein shake, I exaggerate a little bit, so I get 40 grams of protein there. So that's about 60 grams for breakfast. Then I always prepare a protein shake. And this is the thing, I always do 2 shakes per day, because I could get it technically from food just by eating, but it would be a lot of food. It would take way more time, and money-wise as well, it's pretty cheap protein if you buy it. So that's why I really do it this way. Back to where my routines are. I prepare a shake that I will have right before lunch, really. So I drink it around 12 in the middle of the day. Then I wait a few hours. I will have my lunch, and this lunch contains of mainly one protein source. It can be either some sort of fish, it can be chicken, or it can be meat. There's been some occasions where I don't have any of them. Maybe I have a salad with beans. Beans are still pretty good. But at that point, I usually take a can of tuna or some extra protein source just to get that protein intake. But I like to have at least one sort of meat source or one protein source at least, to my meal. That's for lunch. Then in the evening, depending on if I'm training early or late in the evening, if I'm training a bit late, I like to eat something before training. Otherwise, there's been a long gap where I train without no food. So not necessarily that I don't have energy, but if you feel a bit hungry, it's not nice to train, or in my opinion. So at that point, I usually buy some sort of snack. And that can be either a protein bar, a protein shake. Sometimes I also, or the first thing I do when I enter a store is I go to the section where they have discounted food because the date is soon to expire. And usually they have some sort of ham or something, or chicken sometimes finished. And I buy that one, and I will literally sit in my car, roll up my ham, and just eat it for protein. It might not be the most delicious thing, or I like it to be honest, but maybe not the freshest way, but a lot of protein as well. That's at least 25 grams right there. But if I don't have access to it, I would just buy a protein bar or maybe a shake. Some milk, to be honest, is pretty decent as well. 10 grams of protein maybe per 3 deciliters. So that's the snack. And then for dinner, it's sort of back to the lunch structure. I like to have a protein source that is pretty big, and that is chicken or meat usually. And especially dinner, I most of the time eat at home. And at that point, I can also change or adapt it a bit more. So let's say I don't have enough protein. At that point, I can just crack a few eggs as well and add into the dinner. If that's the case, I also have my access to protein powder. I prefer only taking it 2 times per day, the protein powder, because in general, I prefer eating as much natural food as possible. But if I need it, I will take an extra shake. One thing I also tried, sometimes if I'm way too low in protein at the end of the dinner, I will wait a few hours, and later on I will take some yogurt and mix protein powder in the yogurt as well, just to switch it up from the protein shakes. Because to be honest, it gets a bit boring if you drink the same thing day in and day out. So that's the way I switch it up. And then in the end of the day, most of the time I land about 200 grams of protein. And let me tell you, in the beginning, you will have more toilet visits. Your stomach is gonna react to it, but that's just for a period of time. Then after a while, you sort of get used to it. Like now I'm back on the same routines as I was before, and I feel pretty good. And the other thing I felt with this protein intake is my capability of recovering. If I get my sleep right, that's probably number 1 factor, but let's assume that one is good. I then have enough protein to recover properly. And I felt it in workouts that I do feel strong each session. Some sessions are of course a bit worse than others, but that usually depends on other factors. But this at least allows me to check off the category, like, is my food or diet good? And if that's good, then the training is more reliable on what am I actually training? Am I getting enough sleep? How stressful is my life? So this makes sure that this one is at least good. I can focus on the other thing. And one other thing that is pretty important, and I didn't really know the effects of, when I started eating a lot of protein, I didn't feel hunger the same way. I've always heard people say that, oh, you should eat a lot of protein because then you will not feel hungry, and that's a good way to reduce calories or be on a calorie deficit if that's your goal. For me, I don't really care too much about calories. I don't really count them, but in the end of the day, I don't feel as hungry as I did before. So this means that I'm literally just sticking to my meals and thereby also having a pretty limited calorie intake, which means that I'm pretty lean as well, even if that's not necessarily my goal. But it does definitely help me not to take cheat meals or, you know, eat just because I feel like it. Because before, when I didn't have this high intake, I could eat a lot more, and not during these fixed times. Like there could be between lunch and dinner, I could have a big proper meal because I just was really hungry. And then at that point, in the end of the day, I had eaten a lot. That changed a lot as well when I started this protein intake, just to have in mind. So I think that wraps it up. The reasons why I take it and how I do it. To sum it up, my advice is to eat 2 grams of protein per kilograms of body weight. And if you do so, I think you're gonna see significant results. Ciao, ciao.